Dragonsword Awakening is a game that's had quite the interesting journey, as it was first intended to be a gacha game. But somewhere along the line, the developers decided to turn ship and make it a $30 single-player co-op game. And just a few weeks ago, the developers Hound13 sent me a review copy so I could play the game at my own pace. So today I'll be giving you my honest impressions after about 20 hours of playtime. But first of all, what the hell is Dragonsword Awakening? Well, at its core, you could think of it as a single-player alternative to games like Genshin Impact and Withering Waves, but without the slot machine mechanic attached to it, and with a little bit of Dragon's Dogma, Monster Hunter, and even some Devil May Cry DNA sprinkled in. It's an action RPG light that drops you into a very vibrant and stylized 3D anime world where you explore the, well, map, open chests, solve puzzles, juggle enemies, and face off against large boss monsters like dragons and trolls. Now, you play as Lute, or as I like to call him, not Link, a young boy who gets recruited by a group of mercenaries who are trying to make a name for themselves by taking on protection jobs and other work. And together with this rowdy band of adventurers, Lute soon finds himself facing a world-ending threat that he's simply far from ready for. Now, the most fascinating part to me about Dragonsword Awakening, though, is the gameplay design. Because everywhere you look, you can clearly see the architecture of a free-to-play gacha game. The character menus, the upgrade tracks, the gear slots, they all scream gacha. Except Hound13 surgically removed the microtransactions before launch, and so what's left is this fascinating hybrid. A game that looks and plays like a live service title, but lets you earn absolutely everything by simply playing through the story and exploring the world. Now, this setup creates a really strange psychological effect when you actually start running around the world, and I personally call this the Phantom Gacha syndrome. You see, if you've played a lot of gacha games, your brain has been conditioned to look for the frantic rush to clear every side quest and hunt down every single chest because you desperately need premium currency to pull on a banner, as that banner generally has a very pretty lady on it. But here, that anxiety is entirely gone, because in Dragonsword, you aren't fighting a ticking daily login clock and there's no energy meter locking you out of progress. Instead, the open world turns into a cozy, laid-back checklist where you explore the world on top of your mount, which allows you to climb mountains and even dive underwater. The game also features quaint little details like a day and night cycle with changing weather, where specific enemies like skeletons in graveyards only show up after dark. Side content also has personality, like a questline involving a marmot king that is pure and dumb hilarity, complete with whack-a-mole minigames. There's even a questline about cooking food featuring a marmot named Marden, who, yes, is a Gordon Ramsay stand-in, forehead wrinkles and all.
Where's the lamb sauce?
There are also metric tons of these simple little environmental puzzles, albeit they can get a little repetitive. Like this one where you have to place specific stones on platforms whereby you are rewarded with a chest for completing them. Or this one where you have to restore statues, which will let you instantly revive your team once the statue is rebuilt again. And around the world, you'll find these windmills that, when activated, will remove fog of war from your map and allow you to take off flying with your mount. Then there are platforming sections, flying minigames, and more, so there's quite a few things to do in the open world. There's also a co-op system in place whereby you can explore the world with friends, but I haven't had the opportunity to test it out, so I can't really speak on it. That said, there is a strange catch to this freedom from the gacha cage. You see, because you aren't chasing gambling tokens anymore, the exploration can lose some of that urgency. Around hour 3, I'm not gonna lie, some activities started to feel a little bit like a chore, as you're opening chests for progression materials rather than the unexpected jackpot of pulling a 5-star character. You simply don't really get that rush. But if you push through this early slump, the game will at some point feel like it switches gears. And for me, that was around hour 6, specifically when I had unlocked the characters I wanted. That's when the system started to click for me. The map felt like it was opening up with more and more stuff to do and find, and the real loop kicked in, which was to push my squad to tackle the high-level hunt challenges and towers, with hunt challenges having a similar feel to games like Monster Hunter and Dragon's Dogma, specifically because you can cling to monsters as certain characters to stab them in the face, which is a pretty cool little element during fights. And that brings us to the actual meat of the game, the combat. Now on the surface, it looks like a standard anime hack and slash game, or as some people have already started calling it, Korean Genshin Impact. But once you get a few characters on your roster, it transforms into a surprisingly tactical tag team combo puzzle. Now there's no universal blocking or parrying in Dragonsword Awakening. You see, it's entirely built around precise dodging and mastering the so-called break and burst loop. You see, enemies and bosses have a stun bar, and your primary goal is to tear that bar down. Most characters can hold their own if you level them up enough, but the magic happens when you start leaning into elemental and status synergies. For example, I've been playing most of the game with Teresia and Kalian here. Teresia often acts as the enabler. I start with her to inflict bleed damage and smash through the enemy stun bars. Now the second the stun bar breaks, a signal lights up on your character portraits, and tapping that button swaps your party member and triggers a launch transition together with a big attack, like with Kalian here, the Fire Spirit Summoner, who has attacks that allow for full aerial jungle combos, blowing enemies up with explosive firefoxes and damage over time. The combat really rewards you for setting up these status and juggle combos, because if you just smash buttons and swap characters at random, you're missing out on the biggest damage multiplayers and frankly, all the fun. But when you build a squad that sets up the launch, the tag, and the juggle, it feels incredibly punchy and so good. Now to pull up those huge numbers during your juggles, you actually need to build your characters, which brings us to how this game handles progression. So instead of pulling a banner to get new heroes or materials, this is tied to a milestone, as you get a letter called Fate's Invitation to unlock a new character every 10 main story missions, basically at the conclusion of every major story chapter. And instead of pulling duplicates of the same character to awaken them, here you need fragments of sacred light, which you can earn by doing various activities like side missions and primarily by leveling your mercenary corps. Now the mercenary corps acts exactly like a traditional gacha reward ladder or guild reputation track, but without the expiring battle pass stress. Now for some other stats, you have the challenge tower, which features 3 different elemental doors with 30 challenges per door, and clearing these floors drops memory fragments, which you use to buy karma cards, this being another important tool to your build crafting. You see, you can only equip 1 karma card to 1 character at a time, and they give specific bonuses based on character traits. For instance, I bought a fire damage card for Kalian, the Firefox girl, and because she has fire affinity, the card gives her a passive 12% extra crit chance and extra 10% burn damage. And by buying more cards of the same kind, you can then use them to upgrade your main karma card to increase the passive stat, in this case getting a higher crit chance. And just like leveling your character, you level these cards as well. And finally, you have the actual endgame gear loop. Here we have 5 traditional equipment slots: head, chest, legs, gloves, and boots, and every time you clear a dungeon, you get a random roll on the stat combinations. If you're farming for crit gear like I am right now, you're going to pull a lot of useless garbage, just like in most other gacha games that feature instances like these. But you don't have to worry about stamina or energy currency locking you out. You see, if you get a bad roll, you don't have to wait 24 hours or swipe a credit card to get your energy back. You can just turn around and refarm the dungeon as many times you want. Essentially, it transforms a frustrating mechanic into a classic infinite weekend ARPG grind that you can pick up anytime you want. Now, it's not all sunshine and explosive firefoxes, as we have to talk about the Jank, because this game has its fair share of rough edges. For starters, the targeting system is pretty rough by default and doesn't feel very intuitive. On top of that, my copy felt slightly broken because the camera settings I wanted to change simply wouldn't apply and save, which is hopefully a bug that the developers can patch out before or right after launch. The UI also looks incredibly basic, almost like placeholder assets, and the camera can occasionally feel clunky during fights. These are the kinds of quirks that you eventually learn to live with once you find your rhythm, but you will absolutely notice them. Another important thing to keep in mind is that the voiceover is limited to Korean only for now, so if you find it difficult to play without English or Japanese voiceover, this could be a pain point for you. As for me, well, my girlfriend has recently sat me through a bunch of Korean dramas, so I'm all about the Korean voice acting. Now, back to the good stuff. Of course, we gotta talk about the characters here, and thankfully, they are not just empty designs meant to be banner bait. The personalities in the starting squad are incredibly colorful, and the voice acting gives them actual chemistry. Again, it's especially interesting listening to the Korean voiceover, and I like seeing an actual effort into making each member of the squad feel distinct. Johnny, the leader, is boisterous and confident, much to his own detriment. Arya is calculating, strategic, and calm. Castella here is a no-bullshit type character who isn't afraid to butt heads with people, and she's constantly fed up with Johnny's bad choices.
조니 이 멍청아! 실내에서 폭탄을 던지면 어떡해!
그건 아리아가 특별 제작한 폭탄이다. 보다시피 모두 멀쩡하잖아.
멀쩡은 무슨! 류트는 어떡할 거야! 너 때문에 기절했잖아!
Also, Lute, the player character, isn't some mute protagonist. This young man actually has emotions and constantly finds himself overwhelmed by his team and its erratic leader. The best part is that he actually talks almost as much as the rest of his comrades, which makes for a refreshing take on the typical gacha protagonist.
늦어!
바로 온 거야.
뭐 아무튼 좋다. 지금부터 단장으로서 너에게 특별한 지령을 내릴 테니.
특별한 지령? 무슨 일인데?
The story itself doesn't play too safe with fantasy tropes either. It sets up a genuine mystery here, and it isn't afraid to hit some dark emotional beats where people actually die. The serious tone is balanced out nicely by the goofy hijinks and constant bickering between the squad members, which makes your mercenary band feel like a real team rather than just a collection of combat stats and nice legs. Speaking of nice legs, we have to talk about the visual direction too, obviously. Now, let's be real here. If you are a member of the Hot Anime Characters Enjoyer Club, Hound 13 absolutely understood the assignment. Now, I'm not sure entirely why, but characters in this game look pretty different compared to other gacha games. Proportions, for example, are different, faces look more soft, and they don't shy away from showing skin. Now, in a standard mobile gacha, this kind of, let's say, visually striking design is specifically engineered to hold your wallet hostage on a limited banner. Normally speaking, that is. Here, well, you get to appreciate the studio's clear dedication to aesthetic excellence, completely guilt-free. So, if you're the type of player who genuinely enjoys open-world exploration for the sake of exploring, being a general loot goblin, and looking at eye candy along the way, this game hits a very specific sweet spot. Ultimately, I would say that Dragonsword Awakening succeeds as a very interesting experiment. It proves that you can actually take these addictive gameplay loops, the progression ladders, the character building, the gear grind, and make them genuinely fun by stripping away the exhausting daily login chores, the stamina gating, and the pressure to open your wallet. Now, personally speaking, if the developers at Hound 13 plan on expanding this world, adding new chapters, or releasing DLC with the new characters down the road, I would absolutely support that. This is a surprisingly cozy but rough around the edges action RPG that respects your time and your wallet. That is to say, if you're a fan of this specific type of game, then Dragonsword Awakening is absolutely worth it. But those are just my thoughts after 20 hours. Now let me know in the comments below if you're planning on checking this out, and as always, thank you so much for watching. This has been Mr. Holton, signing off.